out that intention was going to be the subject of my talk. Like you do, I started thinking about intention a lot, so much so that I started to get mixed up about what intention actually even means to me. And so I sit across from my friends and ask them what intention means to them, and I kind of saw that they were having the same difficulty. I mean, it used to mean this, like a thing intended, like an aim or a plan, but somewhere along the way, it became something more self-helpy, really. Papyrus, everyone. So nowadays, you set an intention, and then you go about your day, right? You be happy, you be nice, be brave. I have to have a microphone. Damn it! I tried to not have a microphone yet.
Keep going, just talk loud.
Okay, so you set your intention. Be happy, be nice, be brave. I mean, these are all great, but what good are they without knowing the steps to get there? Is this thing on? Is this better? Yeah. Woo! Okay. Then I realized it's the intentions that are easy, it's the action part that's hard. It's like saying, I want to be this great artist, and that's the easy part. It's the focusing on the hard, grinding, tedious, day-to-day stuff that is the hard part. So we end up having all the best intentions, and then we don't understand why we don't ever make it there. And looking back at my career, intention has been far less important than action. Keeping the intention in mind always, but taking each day at a time. Because 1, 2, 10 years ago, I never intended to be here, this point in my career, standing in front of you, talking to you. So for me, I found the following formula to pretty well work when it comes to some sort of success. So you get out of bed, you work really hard, you have some fun, that's really important, sleep, repeat. When you put these things in motion time and time again, one day you'll wake up and you've done something totally amazing. And maybe sometimes it's something you didn't even plan on doing. And then you're not even sure how you got there. So I could stand up here and tell you that, I had all these intentions, but that wouldn't be true. Sometimes I've been very intentional in my career. Sometimes I've been at the right place at the right time. Sometimes I've been really lucky, and sometimes I've just had to make some tough decisions. But if I have had any intention throughout this whole life of mine, it was simply to survive. To survive today is one of those things. To survive day-to-day drama, get my work done, pay my bills, and avoid disappointing the people around me. And if I go way, way back to high school, look at that. When I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, my career ambitions were like less than high. All I wanted to do in high school was marry this guy, stay in my hometown forever, and turn my high school part-time job into a career, which was the Tipton County Courthouse Auditor's Office, working with my mother. So college wasn't even something I was the least bit interested in. But then my boyfriend told me he was going to go, not this guy, this guy, my boyfriend told me he was going to go to college, and I thought, oh God, I guess I got to go to college too. So he had decided to go to Vincennes University to study horticulture, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, except I knew I wanted to follow him. So having always been the artsy one among my friends and spending all my electives in the art department, I flipped to the A's in his Vincennes course catalog, and I found commercial art and design, computer graphics option. I had no idea what this was at the time, so I asked my high school art teacher, and she said, yeah, you could probably make money doing that, more than being a fine artist. And I said, sign me up. So, a little closer. Oh my God, that's so loud. I can hear myself.
We want everyone to hear you.
Okay. So, off to Vincennes University I went. And something happened over the course of the first semester. Something clicked. And after clocking only a few hours of coursework, I was obsessed, infatuated, and totally in love with design. And it really started the first class of my first semester when I learned about the Gestalt theory, which has basically been the foundation of how I've approached my design work ever since. Working with simple patterns and using them, like using things like proximity, closure, and continuity to make unique symbols. My professors were great, and they nurtured this newfound passion of mine. I wasn't great at first, but I worked really hard and I got better. I think my husband's leaving right now. I heard a zip up. Okay, we're good. All right, he's gonna catch a flight, so there might be some PDA. All right, back to the slides. So I found this thing that I was good at, and I found this group of people that were my people. So one semester in, having fallen in love, I broke up with the high school boyfriend. Shocker. I had found this new focus in my life. And was this intentional? Sort of, but still at this point in my life, I had no grand intentions around my career because back to Tipton I went and moved back in with my parents. And got my first job at Pip Printing in Kokomo, Indiana. And I don't know if people know what Pip Printing is, but it's like a total low-rent Kinko's FedEx. I was making like goldenrod copies for like the most rude customers you could imagine. And I had my first bad boss of my life. Debbie was this little fiery, chain-smoking, always drama-having, like tiny little woman who wore like the stonewashed mom jeans before they were like totally cool, or they were kind of cool, and like big hair. And she made every day pretty miserable and made me wonder what the hell I was doing with my life. And looking back, it was the first time I realized I was in this bad situation that I had to figure out how to get out of it. And from a young age, I had working class parents who instilled in me that you just do not quit what you start. So I knew I had to have an exit strategy before I could do anything. Coincidentally, the print shop behind my parents' house in my hometown was hiring a graphic designer. It was their first hire outside of their little Irish family. And it was the only place within like a 10-mile radius of my hometown that I could get a job in what I was doing. And as luck would have it, my parents knew them from church, so I got the job. It's a small little family-owned shop. They had two color presses and a letterpress. And this is Kevin, and I think that's Brian walking through the door. And like this family is like the best family. They were so great. They gave me tea and ginger snaps every day. We listened to the Chieftains all the time. It was great. But because of their limited capabilities, I had to learn how to work within these limitations, and I had to do what they could actually produce. So highlights from this time: church bulletins, company newsletters, high school athletic rosters, and a lot of other things that I'll probably never, ever, ever show anyone ever. And it wasn't sexy at all, obviously, but I was learning. And I was learning things that at the time I could never know how, I could never know how important and valuable they'd be to me down the road. So I was 21 at this time, and remember I was still living with my parents because I wanted to stay in my hometown forever. And I was totally living the townie way. When you're 21 in a small town, that's where it gets fun. So around this time, I actually broke the rules a little bit. I did something that they couldn't print in-house, so we had to send it out to this place in Muncie, Indiana, called CS Kern. A couple weeks after that job was done, I got a call from them saying, hey, we kind of liked what we saw, do you want to come in for an interview? So I did, and I got the job. So a couple months later, I moved to Muncie. This was a big city for me. I was so scared. So I'm gonna do my Marco Rubio, is that? Old reference, sorry. So CS Kern, I mean, I walked in here, I thought this place was so cool. It had this full photography studio in-house. They had these giant presses in the back. They had really talented designers and illustrators at the time. And I was super intimidated. Like, I was so excited to be part of this. But my first batch of clients were production clients. This was my first client, Muncie Novelty Indiana Ticket. These are actually my designs, so you're welcome for this beautiful, beautiful things I've put on this earth. And yes, there is some Corel Draw clip art up in the right hand corner. So it really sucked, and it wasn't what I expected. Because I was ready to do cool shit, man. I was, ready, but I was stuck working on this, production projects, running films, and all the pay your dues type work. And I watched as all these other designers, more senior designers, missed deadlines and half-assed their work, and so I just waited, and I worked really hard at this stuff. And I was like this raccoon waiting for crumbs to drop. And when I got the opportunities, I busted my ass because I did not want to do production work for the rest of my life. And each time I did a good job, I found that I did another job, and then another, and then each time I did a good job there, it would bring more responsibility. And then I was eventually promoted to art director, which was kind of awesome. My confidence was starting to grow at this time. And I was taking things a little more serious. And around this time, I started devouring design annuals, like I hadn't really before. I didn't really pay much attention to it before that point. And that's when I found this. And it was like the late 90s at this point, and this changed my life. Like, I had never seen anything like this before. And the typography and the movement, and I just would look at this like a weirdo, like all the time. It was like tagged in my little design manual. And I just thought, that is so cool. And then, a year after finding this, I realized it was a woman who designed it. And, well, let me just say, in like 97, every person I'd ever heard about who was a good designer was a man. And so Paula Scher was this like, oh my God, I could maybe be a good designer one day if I worked really hard. Women can do this. So I fell in love with poster design at this point. It was my favorite medium, and when you were at CS Kern, the big thing to do there was the Ball State University athletic posters. So if I wasn't deemed good enough to do the basketball and football posters, but it actually worked out because those had to have the pictures of the team, had to be super straightforward with like Ball State University basketball over it. So I got the tennis posters, which I was like, oh man. But then they let me do whatever I wanted to do. It was really awesome. As long as I put the little players somewhere, like I really stuck them in real small. But it was really great because we had the photo studio, so I would just take random objects and be like, hey, Tony, can you shoot this ball, like, real weird? And then we'd have the players come in, and I'd work with typography, so it was really cool. I was falling in love with poster design, I was falling in love with typography, I was falling in love with letting my guard down and having fun with design. And speaking of love, one day there was talk at CS Kern. They were going to hire a writer. And it was the boss's nephew. And he was freshly back from teaching English in Korea. His name? McAdams-Gonzales. For me, it was love at first sight, obviously. For him, that's a whole other story. So, regardless, we hit it off, and we worked really well together. This is actually one of the first things I think we worked together, and it was for the City of Muncie light pole banners, and we were tasked with trying to stop the brain drain, I guess, and have people stay there. So we got to be a little sarcastic. And Matt wrote the headlines, I did the illustrations, and then the best part of this whole thing is that they would get phone calls like every week from people to take them down because they hated them so much. So awesome. But, we worked together for a little while, and then we were together. That was your PDA, people. But because we, after a couple of years of working together, we ended up together, I didn't think we should work together, you know? So I headed to Indianapolis, and I was in search of bigger opportunities and bigger paychecks. And I worked in agency life probably a couple of years, and it kind of sucked. It was 2003, and my portfolio was not very good. And I could not get past the Vincennes thing. Like, it was my scarlet letter. People would not even talk to me because I didn't go to a more prestigious art school. After having a few experiences that were ill-fitting and working long hours and having, honestly, some semi-emotionally abusive bosses and doing a lot of work I wasn't proud of, it finally happened. Intention, I guess. I was ready to declare my independence. So, like you heard before, I can't just quit my job, so I had to have a plan. And I couldn't, I had to negotiate enough time at my job to get insurance. So that was like the big thing. And I started working as much on the side as I could. It was 27 hours, by the way. 27 hours was how much I needed to work to get insurance. Worked a lot on the side. I paid everything I could off. My car, I really didn't have much else. I had a cat. I had a $500 a month apartment in Broderville and no other real financial obligations. And I had managed to save about a few thousand dollars in the bank. So it took me a year to feel comfortable, and then I did it. I quit. And I started Amy McAdams Design in 2004. My first year as a freelancer, I made approximately $15,000. And I don't know if you know how much it takes to live, but that ain't enough. But luckily I had paid things off and I'd saved the money, so that helped. But it was hard and I felt like I was failing, but I was able to make ends meet, and I just took it day by day. And there was nothing glamorous about that first year except for I was able to make my own hours. But I did do something right the first year. I had a lot of extra time on my hands, so I volunteered my work to organizations that I loved a lot, and Second Helpings and Time Involved being one of them. And I still work on it today, so it's so fun. But this did two things. It allowed me to work on my poster skills and build my portfolio, but it also allowed me to meet like-minded people and connect with people in like a non-douchey way, to like actually, hang out and meet people who were in other places in the city. And I made a lot of good friends from the time being on the board of Atomic. 3 years in, I had built up a small client base. And this is when I started working with the Harrison Center for the Arts. So this relationship started with just a trade agreement. Like, I designed their monthly posters, and then I got free rent. And I got sponsorship placement at the bottom of every poster in return. It goes without saying that having my name on their posters every month for 10 years helped with my brand's awareness. So that was pretty smart looking back. And it's turned out that this is probably my longest and most valuable client relationship to this day. 5 years in, I felt kind of legit, but I still thought I wasn't doing things right. I think that's something I'm always guilty of, is thinking I can do things better. My client list at this time included the National FFA. I was doing all the packaging stuff for Just Pop In. I was doing Luna Music, in-store performance posters, and store signage, so that was pretty fun. And I was continuing to do event work around town and volunteering with time. I wasn't doing as much logo and branding work at that time as much as I was doing poster work. And I don't know how many poster designers there are in the room, but again, that does not pay the bills. So mostly I was doing all the production work in the background that was paying all the bills. And again, like some of that stuff I did back in the day, never gonna see the production work that I've worked on. That stuff is purely getting that paycheck. But side note, it was around 2009, 2010, and Matt was now an indie. He was a writer and a journalist. And we had chewed on this idea of working together, starting our own thing, because after working apart, we realized we actually really liked working together. But it was just not the right time, and we just kept thinking someday we would just have a drink and dream. 8 years in, I got a little lonely, and I started looking for a place to work other than a coffee shop in my basement. I found the Speakeasy. And that's where I met some amazing people, and some of you are in this room. Brittany, Ryan, Graham. I connected with a community of people like I had never done in my freelance life, and it really changed the way I looked at collaborating and working with other people. 10 years in, I founded the Local 510 with a few of those people from the Speakeasy, and it's a little creative collective downtown. It's a really fun place to call my home away from home, and it's a place where I feel inspired to do good work and collaborate with people I love and respect. 11 years in, I had a lot of good things going. I was doing lots and lots of work for lots of really great clients, but I was turning 40, and I was getting tired of the hustle. And it's hard to describe to people not in the industry, but I feel like there's this saying when you turn 40 that it kind of starts the stigma years. And when I was in my 20s, I thought 40 was so old. And I thought there was no way I would still be relevant as a designer. And I started totally buying my own insecurities. And even though things were going really well and I had this great community around me, I still felt like things weren't right and that something needed to change. So that something came one night while I was sitting on the couch with Matt, who by now is my husband, and we had a couple of kids. He wanted me to come work with him at Well Done Marketing, where he had been for 5 years, and lead the creative team with him. I told him he was effing crazy. I censored myself. But then I thought, why not, man? Remember back in year 5 when we wanted to do this thing together? Like, this was our opportunity, and like, we'd get a steady paycheck, or I'd get a steady paycheck, we'd have insurance for the family. And I know I said I'd never go back to agency life, but this agency was different. Like, my boss would be Ken Honeywell. I mean, he's a great friend, and for those people who know him, he's like one of the best humans on this earth. And he had started Tonic Ball, and I'd worked with him on that and a lot of other things over the years. So I became a creative director with Matt, and it seemed to be the perfect step at the time. It was nice to not have to hustle, for one thing. But a year or so in, I realized something. I hated being a manager. Despite having an awesome team, because they were awesome, it just didn't feel right to me. I mean, I was still doing work, but I was working and I was managing. And I realized something. I'd still rather be doing the work, like, all the time. So that whole I'm too old to do the work anymore was total and complete bullshit. So a little over 2 years in, intention struck again, and Matt and I made a plan. We were gonna start our own little creative shop and make good things together. So along came Matinee. Get it? Matinee, yeah, it's really cute. In January of this year. So again, we planned. So we paid off our bills, we saved money, and we had to wait until our youngest kid got out of daycare so that we didn't have to pay that money every month. And we planned our core values. We were going to work with good people, we were not going to work with assholes, and we were going to try our damnedest not to tolerate nor produce bullshit. Because, as most of you know in this industry, it is rife with bullshit, and we were completely tired of it. It's the shirt, and if you're good, I might throw some free shirts on. And that's pretty much it. That's my story of how I arrived here today. Was I intentional on this path? Sometimes, yes, I was. But a lot of times, no. But on a daily basis, I do have, call them what you want, goals or intentions or principles, I guess. And I thought I'd share a few with you really quick. I intend to be a good mom, a good wife, a good friend, not be an asshole, laugh at stupid shit, laugh at difficult shit. This one's really important. Be a good listener, give a fuck, not say fuck so much, not care so much about what people think, keep my selfies to a minimum. Come on, people. Not eat the cookie or the donut. Stand up straight, really, really bad at this one, guys. Okay. And take time in my creative process, which I'm really bad at too. Like the production stuff back in the day really makes it hard for me to take my time in my creative process. I always want to get there and do it as quickly and as timely as possible. So in closing, I'll leave you with this. Intention isn't worth much without action. And like, don't get too far ahead of yourself. I mean, if you really want to make or be or do, just take it one day at a time. Thanks. Yeah, because sometimes you can have a little bit of a teachable moment, I guess. Like you can kind of lead them a little bit, and you can only do so much. I think that I've seen that you can kind of tell from the beginning who's going to work with you because they want to work with you because they think you know what you're doing, or that they just want you to be the hand that pushes the mouse to get to where they want to go. So I think it's just a matter of trying to make the case as much as you possibly can, and then knowing when you need to just kind of get off a little bit and just say, okay, you know, I'm not an artist, it's what they want, and I need to make it the best thing that I can. And sometimes that's like a really good challenge too. It's like, how can I make this thing as good as it can possibly be within their restrictions? So I would say 6 times out of 10, there's definitely some, you know, like it's the whole don't put the bad one in the bunch for like logo design, because they'll pick a bad one and then you're like, why did I do that? I think usually what happens is I have to allow myself time with everything, like all around. So that would happen, it happens when I'm not so bogged down with like multiple projects at the same time. Because then I can't get out of the production mindset. So if I can plan ahead and actually do timelines with clients, and then actually pay attention to the timelines, and then make sure that they're not overlapping in a really bad way, then I feel okay, take the time, because I know the work is still coming. So I think that is something too, is I just want to get the work done because I need to get the next stuff in line so that we can just keep everything rolling. I say that, I think I've done it once, or I've taken my time, but I try to work with people I really like. So far that's worked out pretty well for me. That's not always easy, because there are people I don't like that I work with. There are people that I like that don't like working with me at the end. So there's like it's back and forth. But the giving a fuck every day is like, I really do give a fuck. I mean, I can sit across from you and you can have like a concrete company, and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so excited to do your logo. Like, and I really am. Like, this is going to be the best damn concrete company logo you've ever seen. And I really do give a fuck until I don't, which does happen. But I think it's just in like making sure it's not always going to be the stuff you want to be doing, but making sure you have enough of those things to give a fuck about, right? Like making sure you have at least one project that you give a fuck about, and if you don't have it, then you probably should go make it happen. Like go make something that you give a fuck about so that you can cope with this over here. Staying up straight is really hard, guys. You sit at a computer all day. The selfies is not hard because I don't like to do that. The fuck, say fuck. It's really hard to not say that word. I had it so many times in this presentation, and Matt was like, you cannot keep saying that like every slide. But I would say the creative process is really hard. And being a good mom and a good wife, that's kind of hard. Like, especially because I love what I do in my career, and I started having kids late. Like, so I had already established this like person, and so sometimes I've got to remember, oh yeah, I got to turn off at like 5 and be a mom, and be a good one, be the best one that I can be. And then I'm like, oh shit, there's Matt. And be a wife too. Yeah. I actually think I was just jacking around with it, and I was like, oh, that works, because as we know, in this industry, we will say that looks really cool, and then I'll force all of the intentions on that thing. Like, oh yeah, that's why I did that ladybugs, because it was like, yeah, they change, and yeah. But I think it was the proportion small to large lion ladybug. Yeah, I like it. Thank you. I think that we might be forced to make that decision initially, because when I did my own thing, I think that was where I was like, I don't want to grow. I was doing everything myself. Having Matt with me has just been so valuable because what I'm bad at, he's good at, and vice versa. But I think that, we don't want to grow. I would say we never want to grow more than 5 or 6 people. We want to keep it really small. But I think we're dedicated to keeping it just the 2 of us as long as we possibly can. You know what's crazy is I was like, I've got to be able to find this woman's picture online. And I can't because I don't remember her last name, which is so bad. But man, she was like, seriously, she would walk in every morning and just light it up. Every morning. There would be something that happened the night before, and man, she was telling you all about it. And then people would just show up. They would just roll into parking space and be like, oh man, they're going to fight out front again. It's like all the I don't read enough and look at enough inspiration anymore. I think that's part of it. Part of what I could do better. I just had recently, probably in the last few months, started meditating more, which has helped me tremendously because I'm so anxious as a human being. But I do hang out with this guy a lot, so he's pretty great to be around and inspires me. But I think just surrounding myself, like getting out, like forcing myself out from behind the computer, which, like some of you guys who know me, it's like, once we get out, we start talking and hanging out and having a drink, that's the having fun part, because sometimes that's really hard. You just get into it, and that's a good place to be. You get in flow and you get the work done, and then you look up and it's 8 hours later, but you have to take a break and you have to go have fun. And I think that's it, is like allowing allowing myself to go to lunch sometimes, take a walk. Yeah.
And your shirts, are they for sale?
They are for free. Do you want a shirt? What size are you? Okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot. You look like
But while she's passing out, everyone give it up for anything.